Birthing a quilt. Now this is a technique that I use to do small art quilts that need a fake binding or just to finish it without having to put on a binding. So take a look. Number one, I'm going to sew the quilt top. So this is maybe, I don't know, it's maybe 14 inches by 9 inches or something like that. I'm going to sew that onto batting. And if you look really carefully, you'll see that it's about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. I've sewed the quilt top to the batting. Teresa says I'm crazy, and yes, I am, and I claim it, and I accept it, and that's all good. It works for me, and it saves time. Now I'm going to tear my backing near the top, so I've got 2 pieces of backing. I'm going to sew those together, but I'm going to backstitch, leaving 5 or 6 inches in the middle that are not sewed together. I also probably use about 1/2 inch seam allowance because I want it to be a little bit thicker, a little bit heavier right here. I don't need a 1/4 inch seam. But you can see along the top there that I have omitted sewing all the way across. I'm now going to show you that I have an opening on the back of my fabric. I'm going to put the good side of my quilt top, the right side of my quilt top, which is sewn to batting, face to face with all of this. And now I'm going to stitch inside the previous stitch line. So the lighter red is my first stitching, the darker red is my second stitching, and now I simply need to trim this to about 1/4 inch, and notice that it's a wonky shape. This technique allows you to have straight edges or wonky edges. Either one will work just fine. And now you clip off that corner because you don't have all the extra bulk in the corner, and then you turn it through the opening. And then as soon as you've turned it, your quilt is now got batting. It has a finished edge. The one thing it doesn't have is quilting. So now it's time to quilt it. So I end up, there's the opening, maybe use a little bit of glue base to close it shut, iron it shut so that it's dry, and then do your quilting. Your quilting is the last thing. Now on this particular quilt, notice that there's what looks to be like a binding. That is a mock binding because I put a small frame on before I actually did all of this process. And by having a frame, once I sewed it all together and turned it, I have this thing that looks like a binding, and I stitched in the ditch to make it even look more like a binding. So, and on the back side, you don't usually have any handwork because your quilting is going to close up that opening. And then if you put your sleeve on the top, nobody even knows how this was done because it's hidden by the sleeve.